Bruchim habayim, welcome, good morning, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. We're going to do that multiple times today because Shabbat is a day filled with the opportunity to greet and to raise up some of the stuff that our very busy and sometimes overly demanding lives. I don't know, they somehow get us away from acknowledging one another in that way that makes us feel connected. So Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome. We begin this morning on page 74. Matovu Ahlecha Yaakov Mishkenotecha Yisrael. It's so good to be here, to be under this tent, and to be able to include those in the Zoomiverse as well. We're all here in one way or another to lift up our voices and to really enter into the Shabbat with an open heart. Please join us. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. ואני תפילתי לך, ואני תפילתי לך, אדוני את רצון, אלוהים ברוב חסידך, ענני באמת אישך. One more time.
Let's hear you, Ma tovu.
Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So once again, if you were just joining us, if you're online, you're going to see that pasted into the chat throughout is going to be a link to the prayer book. You can click on that and you can follow along, as well as the specific Torah portion that we're doing. For those who are joining us in person, make sure on your way in, though I know we can trust our usher today, we have our prayer book and we've got a little packet like this. Make sure that you've got each of those, and if you don't, you can grab it at some point during the service. Prayer book will help you follow along. The packet is where the Torah portion is. And today is doubly joyful, in part because we have two of our students becoming B'nai Mitzvah this weekend. And I have to say, this is a little bit of a return to normalcy in like a really great way. Because of COVID, we have not actually had a double yet in COVID. Our doubles have been mostly split, one at 9 o'clock, one at 11 o'clock. But this is the first time that both families felt very comfortable being together in the same place. And so each of these baby steps back to normalcy is something to celebrate. And we're going to say Shehechianu a number of times today, but I feel like I should say it over the fact that we have two families gathered together in one place for a B'nai Mitzvah, which itself, again, just feels a little closer to normal. And so I'll say myself, and you can join me, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. And so it's our custom that our students begin by placing on their shoulders a talis, a ritual garment that spells out all the values, all the obligations, all the rights, all the rituals of what it means to be a full-fledged adult member of the community. And so in honor of that, I'm going to call both Oliver and Lucas up to be joined Lucas by his grandmother Marlene and his Aunt Cara, and Oliver by Debbie Gersman by his grandmother. And so they'll come on up as they get the talis placed on their shoulders.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chitatef b'tzitzit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chitatef b'tzitzit.
Amen. So you can take a seat now. We move forward now in our prayer book, traditionally to page 80, though we're going to do a kind of creative rendition of that particular prayer. It's our custom every morning in the Jewish tradition to remember small miracles in our lives, though sometimes they can feel big as well. The ability to see, the ability to stand firm, the ability to distinguish between day and night. So instead of praying these traditional prayers, I'm going to give us an opportunity to add our own to the mix, and we'll pray those. And if you're joining us virtually, feel free to put things you're thankful for, big or small miracles, into the chat as well. But we'll start with the people in the room. What are things in which you are thankful for? Yes. Family. So we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for family. For health. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for health. For friends. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for friends. Somebody else? Well, Jude, go again. Go for it. For food. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for food. Anyone else? Yeah. For children. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for children. Anybody else? Yes. For parents. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for parents. We're on page 88 as we move to Elu Divarim. These are the things without measure.
אלו דברים שלהם שיעור, שאדם אוכל פירותיהם בעולם הזה, והקרן קיימת לו לעולם הבא, ואלו הן כיבוד אב ואם וגמילות חסדים, והשכמת בית המדרש שחרית וערבית, והכנסת אורחים וביקור חולים, והכנסת כלה ולוויית המת ועיון תפילה, והבאת שלום בין אדם לחברו, ותלמוד תורה כנגד כולם.
We chant responsively, page 94.
ברוך שעמד והיה העולם,
ברוך הוא,
ברוך עושה וראשית,
ברוך אומר ויוצא,
ברוך חוזר ומקיים,
ברוך מרחם על הארץ,
ברוך מרחם על הבריות,
ברוך משלם שכר טוב לרעיו,
ברוך חי לעד וקיים לנצח,
ברוך פודה ומציל, ברוך שמו.
בשבחות ובשמחות נגד לך ונשבחך ונבערך ונזכיר שמך ונמליכך מלכנו אלוהינו יחיד חיי העולמים, מלך משובח ומפרדי עד שמו הגדול, ברוך אתה אדוני מלך מהולל ותשבחו.
A special psalm for Shabbat, page 96.
מזמור שירי יום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון. Now you know the melody, join us. מזמור מזמור שלי יום השבת, וטוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון, להגיד בבוקר חזיתך, ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, מעלה היגיון, בכינור מזמור שיר יום השבת,
Clap your hands with us.
לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון, כי שמחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך ארנן, מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. One more time, מזמור שיר יום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
We move forward now in our prayer book, page 100, Psalm 150.
So you have to say a word about this before we begin, because this is like the final chance. The final chance to get spiritually awake before we enter into our formal worship. Whatever that means to you, we own the word together, hallelujah. However that manifests your praise, your connection to existence, and the desire to say gratitude for it, we start there on Shabbat. Page 100. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. El Bikodsho. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Birikia Uzo. Okay, here we go again. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Bigevuratav. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kerov gudlo. Hallelujah. 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 Beteka. Shofar. Shofar. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Sing with us.
Hallelujah. 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 Betov umachol umachol. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Mirim ve'udgal. Hallelujah. 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 Metzil leshama. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Metzil lejua. Kol haneshama tehallelujah. Every breathing being gets the invitation to say, yes, I'm glad I'm here. Kol hanshama tehallelujah. Kol hanshama tehallelujah. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
We rise together, page 106 for the Chatzi Kaddish. Amen.
אמרתי ולחידותי וימליך מלכותי בחי יכון ובמכון ובחי ידכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפעל ויאמר ויתעשה ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמד וקודשו
Brichu.
ולעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירם בעולמה ואמרו
Amen. Page 108.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך
Baruch Adonai Amborach
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Seated together, page 110, a special song for the beauty of nature. Yotzer Or.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם יוצר אור ובורא חושך עושה שלום ובורא את הכל again ברוך I hear you
Adonai Eloheinu
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו
Yotzer
העולם
Choshech
יוצר
Ose Shalom
אור ובורא חושך עושה שלום
Ose Shalom
ובורא
את
הכל אור חדש על ציון דעיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאות ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות
Page 112.
אהבה רבה אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו חמלה גדולה ותרע חמלת עלינו בעבור אבותינו ואימותינו שבטחו בך שבטחו בך שבטחו בך ותלמדם חוקי חיים כן תכוננו ותלמדנו המרחם רחם עלינו המרחם רחם עלינו ותן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע ללמוד וללמד לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך ואהבה והערננו בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך ולא נבוש ולא נקלם ולא נקשל לעולם ועד כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו נגילה ונשמחה ישועתך והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ בתוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו כי אל פועל ישועות אתה ובנו בחרת וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד.
We're on page 116, and I want to call Lucas up to lead us in the Via Hafta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבביך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת, יישר כוח.
So we're going to move forward now in our prayer book as we join together in that special song that the Israelites sang as they crossed the sea, page 122, Mi Chamocha.
Ya da ya ya la la ya la da ya 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 la la ya la la ya la la ya 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 la la ya la mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, join us. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. נורא תהילות אוסף אלף, נורא תהילות אוסף אלף. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, together we go. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. One more time, ya 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 la la ya 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 la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la
Once again, if you're able, we'll invite you to rise. We're on the bottom of page 122, and after singing this prayer, Sor Yisrael, we'll move seamlessly into page 124 as Oliver leads us in the Avot in the Givurot. And so we'll call Oliver up now.
Sor Yisrael, kum be'ezrat Yisrael, ufidechinu mecha Yehuda veYisrael. גולנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך את אדוני גיא ישראל.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibur, Ha'anora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקנה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לשני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחייך כל אתה רב לחושיע. משיב רוח, מוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחייך כל הרחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומחיה אמונתו לישני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לה? מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשמש הם מקדישים אותו בשמי ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה לזה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מרוב כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר, אדירנו, אדוני, אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך. ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך, קדושתך נקדיש. ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך, קדושתך נקדיש. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך. ושיחך אלוהינו מפינו לא יבוש לעולם, לעולם ועד. ושיחך אלוהינו מפינו לא יבוש לעולם, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We remain standing, praying silently through page 42, either the traditional words on the page or the words of your heart, and you can be seated when you're finished. In the Jewish tradition, one always ends silent prayer, really personal prayer, with calls for peace. So I'm going to invite us to turn to page 141, as I want to call up Lucas's Aunt Cara to read a special prayer for peace now. Or his sister.
Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message. To all the peoples of the earth, bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of our world. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praise are you, Adonai, who bless your people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvirach e'amo Yisrael b'shalom.
Amen. I mean, that's what I'm talking about right there. She just jumps right in. And the truth is that on Shabbat, we don't ask for anything. We take the petition, we take the request out. Except maybe for this notion of not just that we may know peace, but that we may understand how to collectively move there. So I'm lifting up the words Olam Chesed Yibaneh to bring us to a landing before we jump into Torah. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, it's a statement of commitment that we will build the world, but we will begin from a place of chesed, from a place of love and of willingness to be uncomfortable long enough to make peace real. So we'll try it. Olam chesed yibaneh, yararai, yilai, yilai, olam chesed. Olam chesed yibaneh, yararai, yilai, olam chesed yibaneh, olam chesed yibaneh, yararai, yilai, olam chesed yibaneh, olam chesed yibaneh, yararai. So first we start, I will build this world. I will build this world from love. And you must build, join with me. And you must build this world from love. And if we build this world, and if we build this world from love, then God will build with us. Then God will build this world from love. Can you hear that song?
So in a moment, we're going to move into Seder Kriyat HaTorah, to the reading of our Torah. And we're going to take our Torahs out and we're going to parade it around. And so we've got a number of honors to speak about just in this moment right here. And so to open up our ark, and I'll call all the names together and then you guys can all come up at once. I want to call up Donald Strominger, who is Oliver's great-grandfather, as well as his great-uncle and his aunt, Ken and Phyllis Gersman. And I want to say that it's a big deal to have a great-grandfather at a bar mitzvah. It's not something that happens a lot. And so it's a big deal to have 3 generations, but 4 generations here at once is really wonderful and magnificent. So they can come open the ark, and then there's 2 different Torah passings. So Brett and Lauren Gersman, they're going to pass it.
Is that okay?
To Joel Friedman and Tanya Shelburne, who are then going to pass it to Erica and Bruce, who are going to pass it, of course, to Oliver. And on Lucas's side, your grandpa Mel, to your grandma Judith, to your grandma Marlene, and then, of course, to Jessica and Keith, and then to you, Lucas, as well. So all of those people I called, come on up as we prepare to pass our Torah. And for our candy passer-outers, once the Torah starts going around, make sure swiftly to pass that candy around as well. So come on up.
If you are able, we ask you to please rise. Ein kamocha Elohim Adonai, v'in kemasecha, malechutecha malechut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor v'ador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imloch, leolam vad, Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim heitiv avirtzonecha et Zion, tivnech homo
ירושלים, תבנה חומות ירושלים, כי בכל לבד בטחנו, מלך אל רם ונישא, אדון עולמים. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד, אחד אלוהינו גדול אדוננו קדוש שמו, גדלו לאדוני תהיו נרוממה שמו יחידה. היי אליי לילה 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 Yalla la 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 la, watch your step, la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, ya la la. One more step here. Ya la ya la, ya la 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 la, yalla yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla yalla. Yalla la 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 la, yalla la la. One more time. Ya la la la, ya la. Bring to Rabbi. Ya la 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 la, ya la. Now let's Shevet, you may be seated.
Shabbat Shalom. So we have crinkly candy today. I can already hear it. So if you've got it in your hands, put it on the floor, put it in your pocket. When it comes time to throw, just remember you're only throwing about 50% of the candy because you're going to need to throw again later. So we're all done, I think, passing the candy out. You guys can take a seat. If you've got it, great. But the key is going to be to take the crinkly and make sure that it's in your pocket or on the floor. That way we don't hear it as our students deliver their Divrei Torah. So it's our custom every Shabbat, not just to hear our Torah read, but to hear from our students who are going to contextualize the Torah, who are going to make it meaningful, who are going to wrestle with it. And one of the cool things about today is that you find that there are students who are brave, who don't shy away from the really, really hard stuff. And what's cool is both Oliver and Lucas picked some pretty hard stuff to talk about today. And so we are really blessed to have them as our teacher, exploring some of the major themes, not only in our portion, but things that we think about all the time. And so our first, both of our teachers and our readers this morning, is going to be Oliver.
Shabbat Shalom. My Torah portion is called Parashat Vayishlach. It tells the story of Jacob reuniting with his brother Esau after 20 years. One second. In this portion, Jacob was nervous about the reunion with his brother. Jacob felt that Esau would not forgive him for tricking his father into giving him the blessing of the birthright to the animals and the land. A story back in. Okay. He sent Esau many animals because he wanted to show Esau that he was not a threat and he wanted forgiveness. Each herd of animals was sent with a space between them to let each gift be fully realized by Esau. Jacob told each servant to repeat the same message to Esau. Your servant Jacob is coming behind us. This meant that Jacob was giving his service to Esau as well as the animals. Eventually, the two met and they made up. However, Jacob decided not to live with Esau, but rather serve him to make up for what he did to his brother. Thank you. Okay. After reading my portion, something bothered me. I noticed that Jacob had servants. These were likely to be slaves since he didn't pay them back, like it was early times. I thought Judaism was about letting everyone be free and making sure that everyone can live a full life. If this was true, how was slavery allowed? Although this particular portion of the Torah is prior to the Jews being enslaved in Egypt, we still did not change our behavior after we became slaves ourselves and understood the inhumanity of such a practice. According to Jewish law, people could own others. It was not slavery like we know it today. In fact, it was incrementally better than in Egypt. People were indentured servants instead of slaves. In some cases, the slaves preferred serving a household that treated the slave well than having economic freedom, since no one who served a rich master would ever go hungry. Hebrew slaves could sell themselves into slavery if they were in extreme poverty. They could also become a slave because of the inability to pay a debt. These, however, were Jewish slaves to Jewish slave owners. Non-Hebrew slaves could permanently be owned and bequeathed to the owner's son. Hebrew slaves, on the other hand, were released after 6 years, or the occurrence of a jubilee year. The more I continued to think about it, the more bothered I became. Slavery of any kind seems wrong-headed, and Jews continued to own slaves as recently as Civil War times. If the Jewish people reflected upon the Bible, which is what we were supposed to do, then why did we not realize that they were forcing slavery on people just as the Egyptians had done to them? I feel that the Jewish people should have completely abolished any form of slavery. It is like a robbery victim later becoming a robber. Why repeat the mistakes of the past? One of the biggest disappointments for me is that the Torah seems to take an incremental approach to changing the laws around slavery. It did not do away with it. Rather, it simply created laws to make it better than it once was. Though some may argue that these baby steps are important, I think the Torah should have been more revolutionary and done away with slavery altogether. This raises an important question. When do we act incrementally, and when do we go for a bigger change? Climate change, for instance, is something that we need to act incrementally to fix because there just isn't enough potential to solve it. And we've been damaging it so much. However, some of today's biggest issues can and should be changed wholesale. For example, oil drilling. We know that really bad, right? We all know that you can't solve problems with a one and done solution, and you can't solve all problems by ushering in the solution one step at a time. But the key is to act thoughtfully and carefully when choosing the right approach. I believe that when deciding how to act in order to make positive changes in the world, either incrementally or taking a wholesale approach, one should think the following. What approach would be more likely to succeed? What would help the most people? And do you have the fortitude to solve it? What problems might surface due to such changes? And the most important thing is that you don't make the decision lightly. Regardless of the situation or the wrong you are trying to right, you should always be aware that your decision will impact more than just yourself. Let me repeat, your decision will impact more than just yourself. Because of this, always be thorough and thoughtful. At the beginning, Judaism chose the wrong path when it decided to fix slavery incrementally. But we can choose wisely. We do have the freedom to make our own choices, but we don't have the freedom from the consequences. This is why you have to make sure what you are doing stands the test of time. Slavery in the Bible didn't, but your decision might. Thank you.
No, stay back up. Stay up. Because now that you did an amazing job being our teacher, you're going to get a chance to now chant the Torah portion that you so eloquently unpacked for us. You saw what I meant about our students not shying away from hard topics. And I'm going to get a chance later to address your words and to reflect on this tension that you talked about between when you see an injustice. Do you hope for baby steps or do you hope for big wholesale change? And so We have 3 aliyot this morning that you're going to be reading. And again, if you came in late, make sure that you've got one of these packets. That way you can follow along. And so our first aliyah this morning, Ya'amdu, Chaya Devora, Yaakov, Chaye Sarah, Binyamin ben Shlomo, Malka Esther, La Aliyah La Torah. We're going to call up Deborah Gersman, Gerald Silver, Vicky Kaufman, Barry Friedman, and Madeline Friedman. So come on around to this side. You know where you're starting? All right. We're going to take just 1 second as we're finding the part of the Torah. All right. Just 1 second. We're going to find the start of the portion. Yep, thank you. Yep, got it right here. Okay. All right, ready? Cantor, ready? Here, can I see your thing? All right, ready?
Baruch Adonai Olam V'oed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bochar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ve'ata amarta etev etiv imach, v'samti et zaracha, kechol hayam asher lo yisafer merov. Vayalen sham belayla chahu vayika min haba ve'ado mincha lesav achiv. Izi matayim utyashim esrim Rechelim matayim ve'ilim esrim. Gemalim menikot uvnehem shloshim parot arba'im ufarim asara atonot esrim varim asara.
Ready?
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu, Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
And so for our second aliyah, Oliver, I'm going to call your parents up. Ya'amdu, Fruma Marsha, Baruch ben Benjamin, la Aliyah la Torah. And although it's customary not to necessarily say the aliyah until you're 13, we're going to call your brother up to come stand with your parents as well. Ready?
Yes. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vaitem be'ad avadav, eder levado, vayomer el avadav, ivru lefanai, verevach tasimu, bein eder uvein eder. Vaitzav et hasheni, et harishon, lemor ki yafgashecha esav achi, vishelecha lemor lemi ata ve'anatele vilomi ele lefanecha ve'marten ve'leavdecha le'akov min chahi shlocha ladoni lesav fahine gamhu acharenu ve'tzev ve'tza gam hi et hasheni, gam et ashlishi, gam et kol hacholchim, acharei hadarim, lemor kadavar hazet tidabrun elesav b'motzachem oto.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei Olam Nata Betochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
And so, Oliver, we're going to call you up formally as bar mitzvah now. Ya'amod, 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 Shlomo Reuven ben Fruma Marsha, Ve'baruch la'aliyah la'torah, Chazak ve'amatz.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Mevarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Ve'amartem gam hine avdecha Yaakov acharenu ki amar achapra fanav b'mincha chacholechet lefanai ve'acharechen er'eh fanai ulai ele sisa fanai v'tavor hamincha Atanav, Vihu, Lan Bilayla Hahu, Bamachane. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei Olam Noten Betochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
And so we take a moment to say a blessing that we already began, but this is for a joyous first. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Shechianu V'kiyemanu V'higianu Lazman Hazeh. Siman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, siman tov, siman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, siman tov, siman tov, mazel tov, siman tov, yehilah.
All right, so all our students, come grab some candy, pass it back around because we're going to need it a second time. So come on up. Come on up. Come grab the candy, pass it back around. All the candy's got to come up.
לכל ישראל, יהיה לנו, ולכל ישראל, יהיה לנו, ולכל ישראל. And don't forget to share with the grown-ups, please. Well done, Oliver. Shkoach.
Sorry. All right, yep.
Put it in my pocket. Do I just go ahead and start here, Rabbi? Should Oliver be? I'm sorry to bug you guys. Should Oliver be up here for this? Okay, Ollie, come on up. Yeah, just checking. This is the blessing. So, Oliver, Mom and I want to offer you this blessing. Mom and I want to offer you this blessing. Closer, even closer. Okay, right there. I got it. Today is unique, special, and represents a transition towards adulthood. Your diligent and dedicated preparation for your bar mitzvah has been constant, and we marvel at how you've done it without complaint. You've discovered and demonstrated to your family, friends, and community today the courage it takes to become a man. As a young boy, you confessed to us about how you suffered from stage fright. You told us that you mastered it for school presentations and plays ingeniously by lip syncing. That was not an option today. Our religion chose the onset of adolescence, the most vulnerable time in your life, to test you, to challenge you with a public performance to advance your status in both the family and the community, rising today from boyhood to manhood. As adolescence blossoms, or perhaps as it attacks, our bodies go through intense, uncontrollable, and often embarrassing changes. Yes, as you step away. Acne appears. Our voice begins to crack as it changes to lower octaves, making singing a parsha and haftorah much more challenging. Hormones could cause us to experience unexplainable mood shifts, which can sometimes bring us into conflict with the ones we love. Those of us who think more deeply about our identity wonder, who will we become? Courage is necessary as we go through these adolescent changes. Today, you've shared your courage with us. You presented a lesson on slavery, and you have sung your parsha and haftorah with confidence. We all noticed that you did not lip sync. Our blessing for you is that when you encountered the inevitable challenges and rejections that life will present, that you remember this day and the courage you have shown us all. Courage and its companion, strength, will help you navigate surprises, challenges, and rejections, and will also play a critical role when you must take risks. Thank you for sharing your courage today. We know it will always serve you well. Yesher Koach, our number one son. I didn't cry. And I didn't cry.
Thank you. And you can take a seat now. We always say to our students, when they do end up in a double, we say, look, one of the cool things is that not only are you sharing the day, but for the most part, we put a spotlight off one of you, and then we put a spotlight on the other one. And so your spotlight is turned off, Oliver, and we're going to turn the spotlight on Lucas on. And so it's my pleasure to call him up to the bima to offer a teaching and to be our teacher today.
Shabbat Shalom. My Torah portion is called Parashat Vayishlach and has one of the more problematic stories in the Torah. In the story, a man named Shechem forces himself on Jacob's daughter Dinah and then wants to marry her. Jacob agreed to the marriage as long as the whole town would have to get circumcised. While everybody was recovering from the circumcision, Dinah's brothers, Levi and Shimon, killed Shechem and everybody else in his town. After Jacob finds out they did this, he is upset with them. He's mad at them because they betrayed a potential ally, but Levi and Shimon say they did it to protect their sister's honor. After reading my portion, I was left with a question. Why would Levi and Shimon have murdered the whole town? They say it was for their sister's honor, but is that the real and only reason? Is there something else we don't know? There are a few possible answers to this question. In one answer, maybe Levi and Shimon thought that killing all those people for their sister would make their dad proud because they were protecting their sister. They didn't realize he really wanted peace with the people of Shechem and wanted them to be allies. Really, he was furious. In another answer, Levi and Shimon might have murdered the whole town because people didn't stand up to Shechem when he violated their sister. They remained silent it was as much their fault what happened to Dina. But I have an answer of my own. My answer is they let their emotions control them, so they acted out. They were so angry about how Shechem violated their sister, they got mad to the point that they resorted directly to violence. I personally don't think that they have the right to murder the whole town, even though it was in their sister's honor. I think their father has the right to be mad because they also killed and betrayed one of their allies. But most importantly, I don't think anyone should let their emotions take over them, so they do such bad things. Anger can be good and bad in life, but you have to learn how to control it. For example, Anger could be good when your friend or somebody is about to break one of your things and you get mad at them and they stop what they're doing. That is good because one of your things would be broken if you didn't get mad at them. Sometimes we have to show anger so people get the message and learn what they're doing is wrong and stop doing it. But anger can also be bad. For example, say someone spilled water on you by accident and you yell at them. You don't let them apologize and explain themselves. You punish them through your words. In this case, they might think you're really mean after you do that. You may even lose friendships over it. Yelling at them makes them feel crazy, like they did something much worse than that actually happened. They can't understand why you reacted like you did. I'm personally not the best at controlling my anger, and this often gets me into trouble. For example, I get mad when people don't listen to me or when they treat my things poorly. I also don't have patience when people make mistakes. Sometimes my anger takes over me, and then I have to face consequences like losing a friend. There are times, however, when my anger is good. It makes a passionate person and more empathetic because I know what people are feeling when they get angry. Also, sometimes I can use my anger to make people stop behaving badly, which is good for the world. With this in mind, how can I make sure I have the right kind of anger and use it at the right time? The way I can make sure I use the right anger in the right way is I can think before I get all worked up and mad. I can make sure I stop and think if it's the right time and reason to get mad. As I said before, sometimes getting mad is good. Wouldn't you want someone to get mad at a bully if he's picking on you? So I also need to think when getting mad. So I also need to think when getting mad because I cannot let someone do something dangerous or harmful. I have to make sure that I can stop people from what they're doing, but still not overreact. If I can take the time to think if anger is useful, then I'll always use it in the right way. Shimon and Levi warn us that if you let your anger control you, there will be consequences. Your job is to learn to control your anger. If you succeed to control your anger, you will succeed in life and be able to make your own choices. Shabbat Shalom.
Now it's going to be your turn to read.
So, Lucas, thank you so much for teaching us and for bringing us into your world as Oliver did into his. And now we get to read. This Torah portion is a long Torah portion, and the rabbi's not kidding. They picked the two most intensely upsetting and distressing parts of this Torah portion. There's a lot of fun stuff in here, too.
Yeah, there really is.
There really is. So beautiful. So we begin our next Torah reading with now our Baal Koreh,
I got it right here. All right.
Lucas, and Rabbi Katz
So
will call up
for the first aliyah,
Nice.
I'd like to call up
You want to take your mask off?
Ya'amdu, Moshe Hillel ben Label, Yehuda ben Baruch, Avram
here.
ben Moshe Aliyah la Torah. I'd like to call up your grandfather Melvin, your grandmother Judith, and Jonathan Schwartz.
You want us to recite this right here? Baku Adonai HaBaruch L'Olam V'Oed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher Baku Banu B'Kol Ha'amim V'Natel Lanu Torah Bakam Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Vayavo Chamor Ushem Beno El Sha'ar Iram Vaydabru El Anshe Iram Lemor האנשים האלה שלמים הם איתנו, וישבו בארץ וישהרו אותה, והארץ היא רחבת ידיים לפניהם, את בנותם ניקח לנו לנשים, ואת בנותינו ניתן להם. אך בזאת יאותו לנו האנשים לשבת איתנו, לחיות לעם אחד, בהימו לנו כל זכר, כאשר הם נמולים.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורה אמת וחיינו לתה בקיים בהדדנוי נותן התורה.
Amen. Extra clocks. You guys can take a seat. Extra clock. You can take a seat. Congratulations. And we're going to call up your parents now. Ya'amdu, Leah ben Moshe Hillel, Svi Shimshon ben Chaim Be'er La'aliyah Torah, Jessica and Keith. Oh, and Marn. Yes. Marn, sorry, come on up. What's your Hebrew name? Do you know? V'mine Esther bat Leah v'svi Shimshon la'aliyah Torah.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorah. Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Miknehem v'kinyanam v'chol behemtam halo lanu hem ach ne'ota lahem v'yishvu itanu v'yishme'u el chamor ve'el shechem beno kol yotzei sha'ar iro v'yimolu kol zachar kol yotzei sha'ar iro. Vayhi vayom hashlishi biotam koavim vayku shnei v'nei Yaakov Shimon v'Levi achei Dina ish harbo vayavo al ha'ir petach vayahargu kol zachar Vet chamor vet shechem beno hargu lefi harev vayhu et dina mi bet shechem vayetzeu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Stay up here. Yeah. Surround him with love as we call him to the Bima, Lucas, for the very first time now as Bar Mitzvah. Ya'amod, Ya'amod, Ya'amod. Chaim Baruch Shmuel ben Svi Shimshon v'Leah la'aliyah Torah. Chazak ve'amatz.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai mevarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. Okay. Bnei Yaakov ba'u al ha'chalalim vayavozu ha'ir asher timeu achotam. Et sonam vet bekaram vet chamorechem ve'et asher ba'ir ve'asher basadeh lakachu. Vet kohelam vet kol tapam vet neshehem shavu vayavozu ve'et kol asher ba'bayit. Vayomer Yaakov el Shimon ve'el Levi achartem oti lehavisheni biyoshev haaretz bakna'ani ובפריזי ואני מתה מספר ונאספו עלי והיכוני ונשמעתי אני וביתי. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Can we join together one more time? Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו
וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. סימן טוב ומזל טוב, מזל טוב וסימן טוב, סימן טוב ומזל טוב, מזל טוב וסימן טוב, סימן טוב ומזל טוב, מזל טוב וסימן טוב, יהי לנו.
All right, now we need all our students once again to come pick them up. Come. And this time you can keep them and eat them, so come pick them up. Here, Jude, come pick them up. Come on, I'm walking through the aisles. I see kids. Come pick them up. We need help. Come on. We can't go on until they're all up. All right, now we got the wave of students coming. All right, Lucas, don't go far because your parents have some words for you.
Bruce, you set the bar high. You're hidden. Yeah, you're hidden. We get hidden a lot, we fears. Lucas, you made it. We made it. What an amazing job you did today. Mom and I and Marin and everybody are so proud of you. Getting to this day was not easy. It took a lot of determination, dedication, conscientiousness, commitment, and cramming. Let this bar mitzvah experience serve as a life lesson for you as you embark on your next steps now as a young man. Rise to challenges. Be grateful for the support of others. And know that more often than not, your hard work will pay off. It won't come as a surprise to you to hear us say that sometimes you need a little push or a big shove to get going. But once you put your mind to something, you succeed, and you succeed in a big way, whether it's school, sports, or becoming a bar mitzvah. Lucas, you have spark, you have spirit, you have spice. Put it all to good use. This is a day filled with blessing. Our blessing for you is to have a life filled with love, laughter, happiness, and good health. And when life throws you that inevitable curveball, we know what you've got. We know you've got what it takes to hit it out of the park. We will always be your biggest fans. We love you. Mazel tov.
You guys can take a seat. Because as we do each and every Shabbat, we pause and think of those who are ill and who are in need of healing, who are in need of a refuah shlema, complete healing of body, mind, soul, and spirit. And so if that's you and you're thinking of someone, or you yourself are in need of healing, I'll invite you to share the name of that person as my eyes go around the room, or to write their name into the chat now. We're on page 253. Mi shebeirach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage, who make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberak imotenu mikor habracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We have a special prayer now for the state of Israel on page 259, and I want to call up Vicki Kaufman to read that prayer now.
O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace, and your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
Thank you.
We're going to rise as we prepare to lift and dress our Torah.
זאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. ירמיהו, ירמיהו ומלואו, ירמיהו ומלואו. נא לשבת, you may be seated, except for Lucas and Oliver. You guys need to come up one more time because it is always the custom on Shabbat that, of course, we read from our Sefer Torah and therefore from the first 5 books of our Tanakh. However, we also read always from the center section of our Hebrew Bible, from the book of the Nevi'im. And today is no exception, and so we read from the book of Hosea. We'll begin with the opening bracha, which is on page 254.
Maybe?
I think.
Okay.
We're going to invite you to that page. Tell me if it says Haftarah blessings. I'm pretty sure it does. And we'll begin with Lucas opening the bracha. Thanks.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Habocher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'Vinviei ha'emet v'tzedek ve'ami teluim lim shuvati ve'el al yikra'u yachad lo yeromem. Ech etenecha Ephraim, amagenecha Yisrael. Ech etenecha chi adma, Asimecha kisoim, nepach alai libi, yachad nichmeru nichumai.
Lo ese charon api lo ashu l'shachet Ephraim ki el anochi velo ish behir becha kadosh velo avo beir achare Adonai Yelhu. Wait, no, that was not the right tune. Yisrael. Where's? Oh, yeah. Yelechu Karye Yisag Kihu Yishag Ve'echardu Vanim Miyam.
We're going to join them at the bottom of page 254 in the closing bracha.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים והיום השבת הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה לכבוד ולתפארת על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. יישר כוח.
Take a seat. Because we're going to prepare to return our Torah now to the Ark. And to open our Ark, I want to call up your grandmother Marlene and Lori Ann Go Cool.
And Aunt
Oh,
Karen.
Aunt Kara instead, actually.
Come on, Aunt Kara.
We rise
We
together.
missed you.
Eit chaim hi lamachazikim ba ve'tomcha meushar dirchaya dorcheinoam v'chol nivotaya shalom hoshivanu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kikedem.
Shabbat Shalom. So Oliver and Lucas, thank you both for your beautiful chanting, but also for your teachings. And it's my job every single Shabbat to get a chance to respond to each of your words. And as I was saying to your parents before, whenever we've got a double, it becomes this kind of unique challenge because my job is to figure out a through thread between your pretty diverse teachings. And actually, as I was thinking about it earlier this week, one through thread kind of stuck out to me. And in fact, it's the fact that the focus of Lucas's Devar Torah is interestingly also the focus of Oliver's, even though Oliver never actually said the word. Because what you may not realize, Oliver, is that your teaching was actually about a form of anger, whether you realize it or not. And that form of anger that's incredibly important, a form of anger that Lucas alluded to but didn't fully explore, is something that I want to call righteous anger. It's the idea of looking around the world, seeing a world in flames, seeing a world broken, and being able to say in that moment, I'm not okay with it. By the way, it is itself the reason that Abraham, who was the first Jew in our tradition, was chosen. It's because he had that unique sense of righteous anger. He's a guy, by the way, who, when he was walking down the street, passed a house, according to our ancient rabbis, that was on fire. And where nobody else stopped, he did. And he wondered, who owns this house? Is anyone in this house? Does anyone need help with this house? And because he noticed, because he paused, because he was upset by the house on fire, God chose him to be the person to found a faith upon. He's also the guy, when he was a kid, who was so bothered by his father's idolatry, and his father owned an idol store, that he famously, and as his father was out to lunch, smashed every single idol but the biggest idol and put the hammer in the hand of the biggest idol. And when his father came home and his father said, Abraham, what did you do? He said, look, Dad, I didn't do it. The idol did it. And his dad said, look, idols can't do that. And with righteous anger in his voice, he looked at his father and he said to his father, then why are you worshiping these gods of stone? Righteous anger is what makes change. And righteous anger is what we need to engender if we are not going to tolerate incremental steps. So, Oliver, you spoke about the importance of understanding the difference between incrementalism and radical change. And there are times where incrementalism is important. And you laid out a series of criteria, right? Do you have the stomach for the fight? Are you willing to go to the mat for it? Could you actually succeed if you tried to get a radical change? Or do you have to take small victories because maybe society or leadership isn't ready for the big stuff? But the only way that you're going to get the big stuff in life is if you push. And the only way you can push is by having that righteous anger within you, that fire in your belly that burns and that motivates you to seek a better world, to understand that you are innately responsible for the sins of society. And though in a society you may not be guilty of doing the wrong thing, everybody who participates in that society is responsible. And by understanding that, you're hopefully going to be able to come a little bit better at articulating why that radical change is needed. Because there's so many things that need to be fixed tomorrow. And although a concession might be that you need to take the incrementalist approach, the world needs radical people. The world needs people who are willing to speak that truth to power. And for every one person who's willing to show that righteous anger, there's 100 others that say, I'll give you a small win if you just be quiet. But society doesn't need you to be quiet. Society needs that fire in your belly, because that's the only way that we are going to deal with the greatest ills in our society, whether it be racial justice or climate change, whether it be guns, whether it be people who are dying because they don't have health care, whether it be poverty. The incrementalist approach might fix things for a few people tomorrow, but it will not change the things that we need for the future. But there's a second piece of ingredient, because as Lucas taught us, there's good anger and there's bad anger. And I've just outlined what I think is good anger, right? The seeing the ills of the world and being pushed to try to be better. But not everybody is going to be successful at that, even if they have a fire in their belly. Because there's one fundamental thing that most leaders have, that most leaders need, and that's vulnerability. How many have ever seen someone who burned with righteous anger, who stands up on their soapbox, who screams out what you need to do, only to find that they're met with deaf ears because, in fact, you don't want to even listen to them? Their voice is so shrill. Their message is so inconvenient. Their anger burns so hot, you don't even want to get close to it. But it's the people who have a little dose of humility that colors their righteous anger. It's the people who can say, I think I'm right. I'm going to take you on this journey, but I'm not so sure that I'm right that I'm going to turn you off. I'm going to make it so you don't listen to me. It's those people who actually change the world. It's those people who are willing to listen. It's those people who are open. It's those people who others can follow. Because when the world needs change, they actually don't need prophets, which are the great righteous anger people of our tradition. People like Jeremiah and Isaiah and Ezekiel. Those guys are great, but those guys, unfortunately, are never listened to in their generation. Jeremiah is famously put in stocks, and people throw trash at him. And the king condones this. He allows it, in part because Jeremiah's message is so inconvenient. What each generation needs are teachers, are guides. People who have that righteous anger who burns in their stomach, but who are willing to say, I'm going to take you on that journey with me so that you will learn. And who are patient enough not to give their message once, but to give it over and over in a myriad of ways until it penetrates the person's heart for which you are trying to speak. Righteous anger and humility together in one is the recipe for a better world. And most of us only have one or the other. The goal is to try to figure out how to have both. And in our tradition, the person who does is Moses. Moses who took the people out of Israel. Moses who, according to our tradition, is Anav Ma'od, the most humble person, the most vulnerable person in all of our tradition. At the same time, is the person who, when he sees injustice in Egypt, stands up to a taskmaster who is beating a Jew. A person who runs away from home to end up in Midian to see a group of women being bullied by some ruffians and stands up in righteous anger to save their life. A person who is willing to go to Pharaoh and scream at the top of his lungs, "Let my people go, thus says God." But at the same time, he listens to his people. He listens to God. He's open. He's vulnerable. He is ready. And when he did that, when he mixed the righteous anger with the vulnerability, he became the greatest of all leaders of our tradition. The goal is to be like Moses. And in doing so, you're going to find that those wholesale changes are not so far away. That when someone pushes back because they want incremental steps, instead of yelling at them, you listen to them. And when they feel heard, you take them on that journey with you. And hopefully, you make them a little bit closer to accepting that change. So Oliver and Lucas, I want you guys to come on up. Because you both have both of these things. But I've noticed as I've been working with you that you each, let's say, specialize in one and the other. So Oliver, my sense of you from talking to you, and the cantor and I spoke earlier, is that you see the ills of the world, and the ills of the world bother you. I mean, it takes a special kind of person to look at the slavery in the Torah and not just pass it by, but say, like, that's not okay. And in fact, you come from a family that does that, right? Your mom, through her organization, makes a point to make this world better all the time. And one of the things that I admire about your mom is that she's tenacious in that approach. I see her posting everywhere about her nonprofit. And that fire that burns in her belly, that burns in your belly too. I can see it. Which means that you, as you grow older, you have a little more agency, you become an adult. You're not going to let the world pass you by. You are going to own this world. And when you see something wrong, Oliver, I have no doubt that you are going to change it for the better. You're a kid who speaks truth to power, who is capable of speaking truth to power. And the world needs more people like you. And Lucas, it takes a lot of courage to do what you did up here. It's not easy, by the way, to stand up here and to say, as you did, look, I struggle with anger sometimes too. In fact, that kind of vulnerability that you showed in that moment is a kind of vulnerability that will make people flock to you, to listen to you, to see that the message that you say in life is real, because you're willing to put yourself on the line, your reputation on the line to get there. It wasn't that soon after meeting you that I learned this about you. But it's interesting because I didn't realize it right when we started working together. But then I noticed that within this kind of confidence that you elude, there's also a sense of humility, a sense of vulnerability, a real sense of openness. The walls come down with you. And when they do, it allows people to really see the essence of who you are and to understand that your message that you wanted to deliver to us is a message of honesty, of openness, of faith. Now, the two of you are friends with one another. And by the way, it takes a special friendship to decide, even when you're given the option to have two individual b'nai mitzvahs, which is what we gave to you in COVID, for you to say, actually, we like each other, we want to do this together. And so I think, as I said, you don't have deficiencies in the other area, but because each of you have very strengths, you can lean on one another to help each other grow. That when you need a dose of righteous anger, you look toward Oliver, and when you need to understand what it means to be open and vulnerable and connect with others on that level, you look to Lucas. And as you work together as a team, there's no end to what you can do. I've seen as you've helped each other navigate mitzvah projects together to help each other realize how to actually affect change in the world. And that's what the world needs more of. It needs more of both of your traits, but it also needs more people who are willing to share their strengths with one another to elevate each other. Good friendship is a lot like any good relationship. Each of your lights shines brightly. But when you merge together with one another, that merged light shines even brighter than your two individually. And it's my hope that through that, the two of you can continue to help one another grow. And so we want to offer this blessing to you, the oldest blessing that we have to give in our tradition, the priestly benediction. I'll invite everybody to lift their hands up as you're helping to bless. And those who are online, if you want to turn your screens on, you can do the same. May God bless you and may God protect you. May God cause God's light to shine upon you and give you grace. May God always smile upon you and grant you a life of wholeness and peace.
Can you hear us on me? Be God's will, and let us all sing. Amen.
So stay up here for one more moment because we have a special presentation from a member of our Board of Trustees.
Oliver, Lucas, I'd like to congratulate both of you for the excellent job you both did and send the congratulations to your parents and your extended family. On behalf of the board and the directors of Temple Ner Tamid, we'd like to present you with these small gifts, including a Kiddush cup. This is for you, Oliver. And a Tanakh, and we hope that you will make good use of them over the coming years. Congratulations to both of you.
So we rise together, page 282, as we move toward the conclusion of our service and the Aleinu prayer.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים מודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא
יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו echad. We turn to page 294, and our thoughts now turn to those that we've loved and who we've lost. If you're thinking of someone today, someone who you're saying Kaddish for, I'll invite you to share their name as my eyes go around the room or to place it into the chat. We join together, page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad divrach v'yotei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yom echon v'chayet l'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lomei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'al v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal l'shemei d'kedusha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata da'amiram b'yoma v'imu amen. Yehei shalom Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imu amen. Oseh shalom b'momav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yeshvei teva v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Once more. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. So Shabbat Shalom. Stay here for just one more second because we have Kiddush and Motzi. And if you are joining us virtually, make sure to get your last congratulations into the chat because I'll make sure that Lucas and Oliver get them. And so I want to call up Grandpa Mel and Barry and Elise Tenzer up to lead us in Kiddush and Motzi. And as they're coming up, one important announcement. So I know that we've got a party here afterwards. We are going to be... We're going to be putting a tent up at 1 o'clock for a big program that's happening tomorrow. If you're able, as you see people starting to leave, to move your car into the side without the cones, that would make the putting up of the tent much easier. And just make sure that you are not parked where the cones are, which is where that tent is going to be. And so with that, we'll join together first in Kiddush.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat le'aso et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam barit olam b'nei avin b'nei Yisrael ot hahi le'olam ki shet yamim asher Adonai es ha-shemayim ve'es ha'eretz uvayim chashvi Shabbat v'nafash.
Al kain Baruch Adonai es yom ha-Shabbos v'yikadshesu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam b'rei pri hagofen.
Amen. And here you go.
Yeah, feel free to take a sip.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. And get your last chats in to those who are joining us virtually. And Matthew, I'll tell you when we're all set.